My name is Elena Marquez. I'm 23 years old. Graduation day was supposed to be one of those shiny, perfect memories you look back on when life gets complicated. My sister Barbara and I had both finished college, and our parents decided to throw a big family dinner at our favorite restaurant to celebrate their girls. That's how my mother phrased it. Not our achievements, their girls. Property disguised as affection. The place was packed with relatives. My aunt fussed with her phone, taking photos of the centerpiece like it was a wedding. My cousins compared outfits and futures, clinking glasses of cheap champagne. My dad sat at the head of the long table, chest puffed out, soaking in the attention like he'd personally taken all our exams and written all our papers. Barbara, of course, was glowing. She always was when she knew she was the main event. Her hair was perfectly curled, lipstick flawless, manicure fresh. I caught her smirking at her reflection in the window as if she were rehearsing for the moment everyone would stare. I took my seat a few chairs down, between my uncle and a cousin who wouldn't stop scrolling his phone. My boyfriend Liam squeezed my hand under the table before sitting beside me. "You okay?" he whispered, reading the tension in my shoulders. "Yeah," I lied, just ready for this to be over. He gave me a look that said he didn't buy it, but he let it go. When the appetizers were cleared and the noise dipped into a soft murmur, my mother stood up with a practiced smile. She tapped her glass lightly, the polite signal that something important was about to happen. My stomach tightened. "Well," she began, "we are so proud of our daughters." I heard the word daughters and felt a tiny flicker of warmth. I imagined some speech about both of us, something balanced, maybe even a moment where they looked at me without comparing me to Barbara. Instead, they turned toward her. "Barbara," my dad said, eyes shining in the way they never did with me, "we got you a house." "A house?" For a second, I thought I'd misheard him. Conversations around us sputtered, then stopped. Someone dropped a fork. My mother beamed. "A brand new house, fully paid for, worth $120,000. The whole room erupted in applause. My aunts gasped. My cousins whistled. People raised their glasses, calling out congratulations like she just cured a disease. Barbara put her hands over her mouth and did this little performance of disbelief, tears gathering perfectly in her eyes. "Oh my God," she breathed, "you didn't have to." She was lying. I could see it in the way her shoulders relaxed, the way her eyes flickered for a second toward my parents like she was checking the lines in a script. She always knew. She always knew when something big was coming that was just for her. I watched it all in slow motion, the way my parents soaked in the praise, the way the room seemed to tilt slightly in Barbara's direction like gravity itself preferred her. Then my father turned to me. For a moment, the noise around us faded, and it was just his face, my mother's smile, and the echo of the word house ringing in my ears. "And for you, Elena," my mother said, drawing it out, milking the suspense like this was all some game show. My heart was pounding. I wasn't expecting a house. I'm not naive. But something, right? Something that said I mattered too. Maybe help with student loans, a car, even just a savings bond with my name on it. She reached down, picked up a small envelope from beside her plate, and held it out. "It's a gym membership." For a heartbeat, I honestly thought she was joking. I waited for someone to laugh and say, "Kidding, here's the real gift." No one did. They were serious. I stared at the envelope like it might bite. "A gym membership?" I repeated. Barbara burst out laughing. My dad chuckled. Then my cousins joined in, and within seconds, most of the table was laughing like this was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. I felt something crack inside my chest. I pushed my chair back and stood. "Are you kidding me?" The laughter grew louder. Barbara wiped an imaginary tear from the corner of her eye. "Oh, come on, Elena, don't be so dramatic," she said. "They're just trying to help." "Help?" I snapped. I turned to my parents. "You give her a house and give me a hint that I should lose weight?" My mom sighed loudly as if I was the one embarrassing her. It's for your health, Elena. You should be grateful. We didn't have to get you anything. Barbara leaned back in her chair and smiled, the picture of smugness. Yes, Elena, maybe if you actually go to the gym, you'll earn yourself a house someday. The whole table erupted in laughter again. Even people who weren't sure what was happening laughed uncomfortably just to fill the space. Only my uncle wasn't laughing. He sat stiffly, jaw tight, eyes flicking between me and my parents like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Liam's hand hovered near mine, but he didn't grab it. I knew I was past the point of needing to be held. I looked at my parents, really looked at them, saw the satisfaction in their faces, the way this made sense. Golden child gets a house, the chubby, serious daughter gets a hint she should fix herself. Keep your gym membership, I said. My voice had gone strangely calm. My mother frowned. Elena! I turned to Barbara. Enjoy your house, I told her, while it lasts. Something flickered across her face, a split second of confusion, maybe even fear, but it vanished as quickly as it came. I grabbed my coat from the back of my chair. My uncle shook his head slightly, a silent apology he couldn't put into words. Liam stood up, ready to follow. As we walked away, I could hear my mother muttering about how ungrateful I was, my father grumbling that I'd made a scene, Barbara laughing just a little too loudly to prove that nothing could touch her. Outside, the air was cold and sharp. Liam caught up to me on the sidewalk. Ella, wait, he said softly. I stopped, breathing hard, fighting the sting in my eyes. You okay? He asked. I let out a short, bitter laugh. They gave her a house, Liam, a whole house. And they gave me a gym membership? He winced. I know. I'm done, I said. The words surprised me, but as soon as I spoke them, they felt right. I'm done living under their roof. I'm done pretending this doesn't hurt. He nodded. No argument. No empty platitudes. Then let's get you out, he said. For real this time. That night, I sat at my tiny kitchen table in my shared rental, opened my laptop, and pulled up a list of apartments. I had some savings, nothing huge, but enough for a deposit and a few months of rent if I was careful. It wouldn't be fancy, it wouldn't impress anyone, but it would be mine. I signed a lease 2 days later. A month slipped by. I moved into my small apartment with its creaky floors and mismatched cabinets. I bought secondhand furniture, burned a cheap candle that smelled like vanilla, and felt more at home than I ever had in my parents' house. Liam helped me carry boxes and never once made a joke about how cute and tiny the place was. Barbara, on the other hand, made sure I knew exactly how she felt about it. Hey, she'd call, voice dripping with false sweetness. How's your little apartment? Must be so cozy. I could hear music and laughter in the background. Her new house already turned into a party venue. We're having people over again, she'd say. You should see the yard. It's perfect for barbecues. I started letting her calls go to voicemail. Eventually, I stopped listening to the voicemails altogether. Then one night, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Barbara, then Mom, then Dad, over and over. I ignored the first wave, ignored the second. When my mother called again, I finally picked up, more out of morbid curiosity than concern. Her voice was frantic. Elena, we need to talk about your sister. I leaned back against my couch, heart suddenly calm. Of course it was about Barbara, I asked. There was a pause, the kind that feels like the air thickens around you. She lost the house, my mother whispered. For a second, I thought she meant robbery, a fire, some freak accident, something tragic. What do you mean she lost it? I said. She lost it, my mother repeated, in a casino. The room tilted, and in the quiet that followed, I felt the first dark edge of something new curling in my chest. Not pity, not satisfaction, something in between. I didn't say anything at first. I just stared at the wall, the phone pressed to my ear, listening to my mother breathe like she was waiting for me to scream. How? I asked finally. She had this idea, my mother said, her voice doing that high, brittle thing it does when she's about to justify something insane. She thought she could double her money. Her money? I repeated. You mean your money? Your house? My father's voice cut in from somewhere near the phone. It doesn't matter whose money it was, Alina. The point is, she made a mistake. What did she do? I asked, already knowing I wasn't going to like the answer. There was a pause. I could almost hear them looking at each other, arguing silently about how much to confess. She went to a casino, my mother said finally. She didn't tell us. She went into some high-stakes game, and she kept betting. She was sure she'd win it all back. Let me guess, I said. She didn't? She didn't just lose her savings, my father said flatly. She used the house as collateral. For a moment, I almost couldn't process it. The house, the one they'd bragged about paying off in full? The one they handed to her like a crown? She signed the house over, he said, and she lost, just like that. It's gone. I almost laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. It ripped out of me, half disbelief, half something sharp and bitter. You're serious? What is so funny? My mother snapped. Nothing, I said, swallowing it down. It's just, of course, the house you gave to Barbara lasted less than a month. Elena, my father said, impatient now, this isn't the time. We need your help. There it was, the real reason for the call, not to warn me, not to confess, to pull me back into the same role I just crawled out of. Your sister is effectively homeless now, my mother said. We need you to help us pay her rent until we get this straightened out. I pulled the phone away from my ear, stared at it like it had malfunctioned, then brought it back slowly. You want me, I said carefully, to pay rent for the girl you gave a house to, the same house you told the whole family she deserved. Elena, my father said, impatient now, she's your sister. Family takes care of family. I hung up. Liam called 10 seconds later. They told you? He asked. He must have heard from someone else already. News like this travels faster than physics. Yeah, I said. She lost the house in a casino. He let out a low whistle. Wow. They want me to pay her rent, I added. Of course they do, he said softly. What did you say? I hung up, I said. Good, he replied without hesitation. That night, I didn't sleep much. I kept picturing Barbara at some smoky table, laughing as she pushed their future across Greenfelt, convinced that luck would bend to her like everyone else always had. The next evening, as I walked up to my apartment building, I saw a figure sitting on the stoop. For a second, my heart jumped, thinking it might be Liam, but as I got closer, the shape resolved into someone else. Barbara. She looked terrible. Her usually perfect hair was flat and frizzy. Dark circles bruised the skin under her eyes, and her expensive clothes were wrinkled like she'd slept in them. She stood when she saw me. Elena, I sighed. Not my problem, I said automatically, pushing past her toward the stairs. She followed. Come on, just talk to me. You have a phone, I said. You've been using it just fine to brag for the last month. She grabbed my arm halfway up the stairs. Please, she said, voice cracking. Just for a few nights. I have nowhere else to go. I shook her off and kept climbing. You have parents, I said. Go to them. They're furious, she said. Dad is barely looking at me. Mom keeps crying. They said they can't help me any more than they already have. Then sleep at the gym, I said. You've got a membership. She flinched. I unlocked my door and stepped inside. She lingered in the hall. You have friends, I added. Go to them. They won't return my calls, she said quietly. That made me pause. For all the spite Barbara had thrown at me over the years, she'd always had people orbiting her. Party friends, clingy admirers, people who loved being near free alcohol and a nice yard. But they weren't here now. They were there for the house, I said, not for you. Her eyes glossed over, but she straightened her shoulders. Whatever, she muttered. I closed the door. The next morning, when I left for work, she was still there, sitting on the front steps, wrapped in a thin jacket that wasn't nearly warm enough. I walked past her without stopping. Elena, she said. I kept going. That night, when I came back, she was gone. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. A few days later, I opened my fridge to grab a soda and frowned. The can I'd been thinking about all day wasn't there. I shrugged it off, figuring I'd miscounted. Then the instant noodles were gone. Then the leftovers from the stir-fry I'd made. Then the yogurt. I lived alone. Liam didn't have a key. I wasn't sleeping. I checked the front door lock. Fine. The windows in the living room and bedroom. Fine. Then I went into the tiny laundry room. There was a small window high on the wall, one I never used because it was a pain to reach. The latch wasn't fully slid into place. A slow, cold certainty settled in my stomach. That night, I propped my phone up in the kitchen and set it to record, just in case I was being paranoid, just in case I was wrong. I wasn't. The next morning, I sat at my table and pressed play. The footage was grainy, but clear enough. At 2 a.m., the laundry room window slid open with a soft jerk. A shadow climbed through, dropped lightly onto the tile, and straightened. Barbara. She moved quietly, like she'd done this before. She went straight to the fridge, opened it, and started eating. My food, my leftovers. She drank juice from the carton, wiped her mouth on the back of her hand, then disappeared into the hallway. A minute later, she came back with a blanket from my closet, curled up on the kitchen floor, and went to sleep like this was just normal. She'd been sneaking into my apartment, sleeping in my home, eating my food without asking, without even knocking. That night, I waited for her. When I heard the window ease open, I flipped on the kitchen light. She froze halfway through, one leg over the sill, hair caught on a cobweb. "What are you doing?" I asked. Her mouth opened, closed. I was just... "Don't lie," I said. I held up my phone. "I watched you on video." She stared at the screen, then at me. The fight left her shoulders all at once. She climbed the rest of the way in and sank down into one of the chairs. "I've been sleeping in my car," she said finally. "I was too ashamed to ask Mom and Dad for more help. They're already saying I ruined everything. I didn't know where else to go." "So you broke into my apartment?" I said repeatedly. "I used the window," she muttered weakly, like that somehow made it better. I didn't answer right away. Part of me remembered the nights when I'd lie awake hearing her stumble home drunk, my parents pretending it was normal because she's young. Part of me remembered the sound of their laughter when they handed her a house and me a gym membership. Part of me also remembered being 23 and scared. "You have 1 hour to get whatever you have here and leave. After that, if you come back through that window, I call the police." Her eyes went wide. "You wouldn't." "I would, and you know I'm right too." Tears spilled over.
"You're my sister," she whispered. "Yeah," I said. "I was your sister when you laughed in my face, too." She left. My parents found out the next day. Of course they did. My dad called, already shouting before I could say hello. "What is wrong with you?" he barked. "Your sister was desperate, and you threw her out like trash. You're heartless." My mother jumped in before I could answer. "How could you let your own sister sleep on the street? What kind of woman does that?" "The kind of woman who didn't gamble away a house," I said. "The kind of woman who didn't break into someone's home and steal from their fridge." "She's just going through a rough patch," my mother said. "You're supposed to help her." Where was all this family takes care of family energy when you gave her a house and me a gym pass? I asked. Silence crackled on the line. A few days later, my uncle called. His voice was calm as always. "They told me you refused to help Barbara," he said, "that you're being cruel. And what do you think?" I asked. "I think," he said slowly, "they spent her whole life shielding her from consequences. When she wrecked her first car, they bought another. When she failed courses, they paid tutors. Every time she fell, they built a softer landing. She's never hit the ground before." "So?" I asked. "So, maybe it's time she did," he said. "You're not wrong, Elena. Just be careful. They're not going to stop pushing until you make them." His words hung in my mind for days. Then came the call that changed everything again. Barbara had been arrested. She'd tried to steal from a store, got caught, got booked. My parents bailed her out, of course. Then, instead of asking her what she'd learned, they called me. If you had just helped her, my mother said, voice sharp with accusation, she wouldn't have been forced to steal. That was it. The last thin string snapped. I blocked them all. Months went by. I got a promotion at work, moved into a slightly better apartment, bought a couch that wasn't secondhand. Liam and I settled into a life that felt steady, quiet. From time to time, my uncle sent updates I didn't ask for. Barbara was struggling, working 2 jobs to keep her tiny place, drowning in debt. My parents still made excuses for her, but had finally stopped calling me about it. Then one day, I got a text from an unknown number. "I'm sorry. B." I stared at it for a long time. Then I put the phone down and didn't reply. Sometimes people only realize what they had when they lose it all, and sometimes, by the time they realize it, the door is already closed. For a while, life became unnervingly calm. Too calm, the kind that makes you wonder what's brewing just outside the frame. Barbara had stopped showing up at my door. My parents had stopped flooding my voicemail with dramatic monologues about family loyalty. Even the relatives who like to mystify every argument with Bible verses went quiet. Liam noticed it too. "You think they finally gave up?" he asked one night as we sat on my small couch, takeout containers between us. "I think they're regrouping," I said. He snorted softly. "That sounds about right." He wasn't wrong, but weeks passed, then months, and the silence remained. I got my promotion at work. Liam surprised me with those ridiculous, overpriced donuts I loved. I bought a new coffee table, one that didn't wobble when someone breathed near it. For the first time, my life didn't feel like a waiting room for the next crisis. I should have known it wouldn't last. It started small. A soda missing from the fridge, half a carton of eggs gone, a box of instant noodles I swore I hadn't eaten. At first, I assumed I'd miscounted. Then I blamed exhaustion. Work had been hectic, and I didn't trust my own memory. But then I made dinner one night. Lemon chicken with rice. Enough leftovers for lunch the next day. When I opened the fridge in the morning, the container was gone. Completely gone. I stood there staring into the refrigerator like the answer might be hiding behind the ketchup bottle. "Elena," Liam called from the living room, "everything okay?" "Yeah," I said too quickly. "Just thinking." But I wasn't thinking. I was spiraling. The apartment suddenly felt smaller, darker, unfamiliar around the edges. My chest tightened. I checked the locks. The deadbolt was engaged. The chain was still in place. Every window was shut except one. The tiny window in the laundry room. The one I never opened. The one that required standing on a chair just to reach. Its latch wasn't fully slid into place. A slow suspicion crept up my spine. That night after Liam left, I took my phone into the kitchen and propped it up against a jar of sugar. I set it to record. I felt ridiculous, paranoid, but something was wrong, and I needed proof. I didn't sleep well. Every noise made me sit up in bed, heart pounding, but I forced myself to stay put. If I scared away the intruder, if there was one, I'd never learn the truth. In the morning, before even brushing my teeth, I snatched the phone off the counter and pressed play.
The footage was grainy, the kitchen dim. Timestamp 2:03 a.m. The laundry room window slid open. A figure climbed through. A figure I recognized instantly. Barbara. She dropped lightly onto the tile, glancing around as if expecting me to jump out. When the coast was clear, she padded into the kitchen like she'd done it a dozen times before. She opened my fridge and ate right out of the containers, left the forks on the counter, wiped her mouth on her sleeve. Then she disappeared down the hall. 30 seconds later, she came back holding a blanket from my closet. She curled up on the floor under the kitchen table as if that was perfectly normal, and fell asleep. My breath left me in a shaky exhale. Barbara had been breaking into my apartment, eating my food, sleeping on my floor like a raccoon in designer boots. Except raccoons don't cry over losing a $120,000 house in a casino. The next night, I waited. Lights off, phone ready, heart pounding. At 1:55 a.m., I heard the faint scrape of the window opening. At 2:02, Barbara stepped into the kitchen, barefoot, shivering slightly. She reached for the fridge. I flipped the light on. She froze mid-step, eyes wide like a deer caught stealing apples. "Alina," she started. "What are you doing?" I said. She opened and closed her mouth. I just... Don't lie to me. I watched you. I held up the phone with the recording paused on her face. Her shoulders slumped. She sank into one of the chairs like her body had given up fighting gravity. "I've been sleeping in my car," she whispered. "I didn't know what else to do." "Ask our parents," I said. "They're done with me," she said, voice cracking. "Dad won't even look at me. Mom keeps saying I ruined everything." "That's because you did." Tears filled her eyes. "I was too embarrassed to ask you again after everything. So you broke into my home instead?" She flinched. "Elena, please," she begged. "Just let me stay a week, a few days, anything. I'm desperate." I stared at her. The sister who once laughed when my parents handed her a house and handed me a gym membership. The sister who bragged about her backyard parties while I unpacked boxes in a one-bedroom apartment. "I'll give you 1 hour," I said. "Get your things and leave." Her face crumpled. "You're my sister." "And you were mine," I said, "before you gambled away everything you were given and expected me to pick up the pieces." She wiped her face with the back of her hand. "I didn't think it would matter to you. You've always been fine." "That's the problem," I said quietly. "You've never noticed when I'm not." Barbara left with nothing more than the blanket she came in with. The next day, my phone lit up in a fury of calls. My father: "How dare you throw your sister out? She was scared and alone." My mother: "You're heartless, Alina. What kind of woman lets her sister sleep on the street?" Me: "The kind of woman who didn't gamble away a house." They didn't like that answer. That evening, my uncle called. "Elena," he said, voice steady as always, "your parents told me their version of what happened." "Oh, I'm sure it's a masterpiece," I said. "It is," he agreed dryly, "except it's missing all the parts that make them look bad." I laughed weakly. Figures. "Listen to me," he said, his tone shifting. "Barbara has never had consequences. Not once. When she wrecked her first car, they bought her another. When she failed classes, they paid for tutors. When she messed up, they hid it. This, losing the house, stealing from a store, getting arrested, it's the first time life has told her no, and she doesn't know what to do with it." "What am I supposed to do?" I asked. "Nothing," he said. "Keep your boundaries. Don't soften. Don't let them guilt you, because if you give in now, they'll bury you in her mess forever." I closed my eyes. His words sank into the tired places inside me. 2 days later, the phone rang. Another unknown number. A text followed. "I'm sorry. B." I stared at it for a long time. Then I locked my phone, set it face down on the counter, and went to bed. I didn't reply. Sometimes silence is the only language that finally teaches someone how loud their actions were. For a few blessed months, the quiet felt real, not the tense, waiting for impact silence I'd grown up with. This was soft, breathable. I focused on work. Liam and I took weekend drives. I bought a plant I actually managed to keep alive. Barbara stayed in her tiny apartment, working 2 jobs, according to my uncle, and my parents had shifted from sobbing over her downfall to complaining about it behind closed doors. I didn't miss them either. Then, a Tuesday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message from my father. "Hey, call me when you get a chance." The casual tone made my stomach knot. He only spoke that way when he wanted something. I ignored it. 3 hours later, my mother called. Voicemail. Then Barbara, blocked number, ignored. The next morning, another message. "We need to talk about something important. Call us." Against my better judgment, and because I knew ignoring them wouldn't make them go away, I finally called back. My mother picked up on the first ring, voice syrupy sweet. "Elena, honey, it's been so long. How are you?" "What do you want?" I asked. She sighed dramatically as if I were the one exhausting her. "It's about Barbara." "Of course it is," I muttered. "She's having trouble paying her rent," she said delicately. "She's really trying, but the apartment is a bit expensive." "And no," I said, "you don't even know what I was going to ask." "Yes, I do. Elena, she snapped, she's your sister and you're her parents. I said, you gave her a house. You figure it out. There was a long, brittle silence, then my father cut in. She made a mistake, Elena, but she's learning. We're all trying to help. Oh, really? I said. How much are you two contributing? More silence. Heavy. Guilty. Well, my mother began weakly, we help in other ways. Right, I said. Pep talks. That should cover rent nicely. My father's irritation cracked through. Don't be disrespectful. Funny, I said. That's exactly what I thought when you gave Barbara a house and handed me a gym membership. Before they could respond, another voice chimed in. Barbara! They had her on speaker. Jesus, Elena, will you ever stop being bitter? I laughed. A genuine one this time. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I supposed to forget how you treated me? The parties you threw? The calls you made to rub the house in my face? I made a bad choice, she snapped, but you have a good life. You can afford to help me. Just because I can doesn't mean I will. You're so selfish. Where was that energy when you were bragging about your cute little apartment? I asked. Silence. A silence that told me she remembered every word, every dig. She changed tactics. Fine, whatever. If you won't help with rent, just lend me money. I'll pay you back. I laughed again. No, you won't. You don't even pay your own rent. You're unbelievable, she spat. You'd rather watch me struggle than help your own sister. Correct, I said. 100% correct. My father exploded. Enough. We raised you better than this. No, I said quietly. You didn't. You raised me to be the backup plan, and guess what? I quit. I hung up. Over the next few days, I ignored every attempt they made to contact me. Calls, voicemails, emails, 3-paragraph texts full of guilt and twisted logic. Then my uncle called. He said, "They say you're refusing to help Barbara," he said, and I replied, "And I think they're panicking." He said, "Because their golden child has finally run out of luck, and I think you're right to tell them no." It was the confirmation I needed. The next day, I got a final message from Barbara. "You're gonna regret this." I blocked her number. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. A week later, envelopes began showing up in my mailbox. Strange bank logos, addresses I didn't recognize. At first, I assumed it was junk mail. Then one caught my eye. Bold lettering, urgent, stamped across the front. I opened it and my stomach dropped. A loan in my name for a large amount, taken out a few weeks ago, and the address listed on the application, my parents' house. Cold fury crept into my chest, slowly, deadly. I grabbed the envelope, my car keys, and drove straight to their house without calling ahead. My mother opened the door, her smile nervous and too wide. "Sweetheart, what a surprise!" I shoved the letter into her hands. "Explain." Her smile faltered. "Well, your father and I were going to tell you." "When?" I snapped. "After the collectors started calling." My father appeared in the hallway, arms crossed. "It's just a loan, Elena. Calm down." "In my name," I said, "without my permission." Barbara stood behind them, arms folded, face defiant. "You're overreacting," she said. I almost laughed. Almost. I'm overreacting? You stole my identity. My mother grabbed my arm. "We raised you, Elena. Don't you think you owe us something?" That did it. "Owe you?" I said softly. "For what? Humiliation? Neglect? Favors I never asked for, but you waved around like trophies?" My father glared. "You're acting selfish." "Selfish?" I echoed. "You used my information because you knew I wouldn't help willingly? That's not parenting. That's fraud." I pulled out my phone. "You have 48 hours to pay this off or I go to the police." Panic finally broke through their faces. 2 days later, the loan was mysteriously paid off. I didn't ask how. I froze my credit, locked every account, contacted every bank, blocked every number, and ended it. That was over a year ago. Since then, my credit is perfect, my apartment is stable, my job is solid. I wake up without dread. I sleep without fear of knocking on my door. I breathe easily.
Barbara, from what my uncle says, is drowning in debt. My parents finally admit she's a burden, but instead of taking responsibility, they complain about her. Now they call me, not to apologize, never to make amends, but because they want me back. Not as a daughter, not as family, as the backup plan, the reliable one, the stable one, the one they can drain again. I don't answer because now I know the truth. They never wanted me. They only wanted what I could give them, and they will never get anything from me.